Welcome into this Monday edition of VU Sports Wired, Vanderbilt Video Productions' premier sports talk show. My name is Bobby Kent, and I'm back as your host for the 2022-2023 school year. I'm once again joined by Andrew Wilf, Deputy Sports Editor for the Vanderbilt Hustler. We will deep dive into football's loss at the hands of number 23 ranked Wake Forest at home, as well as Vanderbilt soccer's two most recent matches. First, we will start with football, where the Commodores saw their two-game winning streak to start the season snapped by Wake Forest. The Commodores dropped the contest 45-24 at home over the weekend, falling to 2-1 on the young season. The offense struggled to get going after a field goal that opened the scoring and allowed 21 unanswered before scoring again. Wake would essentially have their way from there. Next up for Vanderbilt is a trip to Northern Illinois, where they will look to get back on track. Before we discuss this past weekend's game in depth, let's take a look at how Vanderbilt's loss to Wake Forest unfolded.
Following a first drive, Vanderbilt field goal and a defensive stand on 4th and goal at the 1, quarterback Mike Wright rolled out to his right and while under pressure threw this pass intended for Will Shepard that ended up in the arms of Wake Forest defensive back Corey Davis. Davis would gather, make a move, and then score to give Wake the first quarter 7-3 lead. Following a Vanderbilt punt, Wake Forest runs the slow mesh, quarterback Sam Hartman faking the handoff and finding wide receiver A.T. Perry for this 68-yard score that takes the top off the Vanderbilt defense to increase Wake's lead to 14-3. Following a Mike Wright fumble and a scramble, Sam Hartman would find Donovan Green on the right sideline. He would break a tackle and rumble all the way down to the Vanderbilt's 2-yard line. The Deacons were in business. Hartman would then fake this handoff, roll to his right, and barely complete this pass to Christian Turner for the score. Wake would take a 21-3 lead. Vanderbilt did not give up there as running back Raymond Davis would take this rush, absorb a big hit down to the Wake 3 for 1st and goal. 3rd and goal now. Vanderbilt optioned Davis into the Wildcat, and he takes it himself for this 3-yard score. After Wake scored to start the half, Wake would increase the lead, this time by a touchdown pass to Cameron Height. A.J. Swan would enter the game for the Commodores at quarterback and would find fellow freshman Jaden McGowan for this 50-yard gain. The speedy wideout, showing his burst, would take it down to the Wake 24. Swan would fake the handoff here, look right, and throw a beautiful rainbow pass to receiver Will Shepard for his first collegiate touchdown. On the ensuing 2-point conversion, Swan would do it himself, taking matters into his own hands, rushing for the score. Wake would put this one away, however, Hartman handing off to Quentin Cooley, who would jump cut and make Vanderbilt defenders miss on his way to this 24-yard score. Wake would add on a field goal, and in the dying moments of the game, Swan would connect with Gavin Schoenwald for the 7-yard score. Vanderbilt loses to Wake 45-26 and drops to 2-1 on the season.
Andrew, as with last week, lots to discuss here. What were your thoughts and takeaways, and who is more to blame for the loss, the offense or the defense?
I mean, football is a game of three facets, when special teams, defense, and offense. But, I had to do it. I'm a big supporter of quarterback Mike Wright, but his lack of care with the football was really evident in the first half. I think Vanderbilt, it's 3-0. The Commodores are leading, and then Wake Forest scores, and I think they're down 7-3, and no, it was 3-0, and the Commodores have a chance to go 10-0, and Mike Wright's pressured, runs to the right. The average quarterback just throws it away and goes to the next play, throws it right into the Wake Forest hands, gets it deflected, and the man runs it back to a pick six. That was really the momentum changer. A few moments later, costly fumble, and then within moments, I think it was 21-3 maybe, or then 21-10, but just really disappointed with the Commodores' lack of care for the ball. And we're going to talk about later, there were some positives with some X factors offensively, but really disappointed with the way Mike didn't really care about the ball, but backup quarterback A.J. Swan did a really, really nice job at the end of the third quarter and fourth quarter to solidify himself as the backup quarterback.
Definitely. I think the turnovers are obviously a big problem. Having three is very tough, and then, those three interception and some fumbles, that killed momentum. This is very much a momentum-driven team right now.
Absolutely.
And they're not necessarily good enough, as Clark Lee said, a couple weeks ago, to overcome those mistakes, and sort of, get back on track from those mistakes. But, they'll learn, and I'm confident that Mike Wright will learn. If there's anything about this coaching staff, it's that they're so driven that they, really want the best for the student athletes, and they are really willing to help them learn from those mistakes. And And Clark Lee's pretty critical of Mike Wright, and I think Mike Wright understands that. I just want to talk about also from a play call perspective. I love some of the calls, like the Wildcat call for the first touchdown, optioning Mike out, and then having, Davis take it in. But there are also a lot of runs in sort of long yardage situations, which kind of were questionable to me, made me scratch my head a little bit. And like you said, Mike Wright was ineffective. He was 8 for 15 for 35 yards and a touchdown, which is a QBR of 3 compared to a 75 that he had last week against Elon. So I'd love to see him improve, but I think I think he will, and I think he'll definitely learn from this.
And Ray Davis really has been solidifying himself as the starting running back. Backup running back Rocco Griffin didn't suit up. I don't really understand.
Yeah, I don't think we were given a reason.
And Patrick Smith still has not seen action, and we don't know that either. That's only something in-house people understand. But kind of going off of what you said, there's some runs that are really disappointing and questionable. And we talked about it last week. After you beat Elon by a slim margin, and you think about that third quarter against Elon, we were literally saying if you play like that against Wake Forest, they will capitalize on mistakes, and they did that right away with their slow mesh offense. And there were a lot of deep plays against the Vanderbilt secondary that I was really disappointed about. I thought the edge rushers did a good job. I was just overall, I think this was just a reality check. Look, you beat Hawaii, you beat Elon, but this just shows that the Commodores are not nearly ready to be playing against SEC caliber opponents just yet. I mean, they need to get ready quickly because they have a tough slate ahead.
Definitely, yeah. Alabama is only 2 weeks away, so
right.
That'll be definitely something to watch for. And I just want to turn, attention to the defense for a second. I mean, they were strong in the very beginning, right? On the first quarter, 3rd and goal, stop, 4th and goal, stop. Being able to get that turnover on downs, the energy in the stadium was electric. That was a really cool moment, great for them. But you can't allow 45 points and expect to win a game.
Right.
And I mean, there's very few offenses that can overcome that, where they can, that can be a deterrent, but not, the nail on the coffin to win a game. And Vanderbilt doesn't have that offense right now. And their defense got stops at times. They got some big stops, but they also struggled to contain on 3rd downs. A lot of big plays happened. Quarterback Sam Hartman had a really good game. 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, especially after his comeback. You have to figure out a way to make him feel uncomfortable, which they were just unable to do.
And Hartman did not look like rusty at all. He had not played in week 1 due to a non-football injury. I think it was announced he had a blood clot, but he looked like he was the professional on the field, and that was a big difference in the quarterback room. But on the positive side, I want to highlight Vanderbilt's 3rd receiver, Jaden McGowan. McGowan's a true freshman, and look, we talked about him before the season. He's so much more than a gadget guy. 3 catches, 56 yards, and he had a catch for 50 yards from Swan that really showed his speed. And you saw a nice connection with Swan and McGowan that, those people that are going to be watching them in the 2024-25 season, that'll be really fun in 2 seasons. And then you use him in more situations, you get him warm. You get him ready to really show the world what he's all about, and I think you have to keep realizing that Vanderbilt does have weapons. I think Schoenwall is really solid. I think Will Shepherd's really solid. Quincy Skinner, but you have to get those guys the ball quickly and early because once you're down 11, 15 points, everyone knows you're going to be passing the ball.
Definitely, right. And I would love to see, to your point about McGowan, I'd love to see him, just they get him in space. I'd love to see some wide receiver screens, some quick slants, some jet sweeps, things that allow him to get space from a defender and then use that speed to hopefully get by a guy or make a big play, right? I mean, even if they're not going to be targeting him, I think you've got to always have it in the back of the defense's mind that, wait a minute, they could, end up throwing the ball to McGowan here, or they could end up giving it to him, and that might open up a lot more things, especially opportunities for Shepard if he's going against the team's #1 cornerback, things like that. I'd really love to see them be able to do that. So, speaking of things that they need to work on, what do you think needs to improve, and how does Vandy get back on track and become 5-0 all time against Northern Illinois?
So I have 3 main things. First 2 things kind of go together: Mike Wright and ball security. Mike, I think he has the opportunity to show the world what he's all about. That's what he did against Hawaii, but just have a little bit more consistency with accuracy, and second thing, ball security. those fumbles, I think the fumbles, the interception, don't force a play. I think what we saw a lot against Wake Forest is, look, this is the first time you've really been down. You're down 7 points, and then you force a throw on 3rd and 6. Take that sack, punt it away. Just play within yourselves. And in Northern Illinois, the third thing, explosive plays. I see a big touchdown. Use McGowan. Use Ray Davis. See some read option. And then on the defense, I want to see takeaways. I don't know if the Commodores have had an interception yet this season, and I think that's a really underwhelming statistic through 3 games.
Definitely. I'd love to, like you said, I'd love to see the defense be ball hawking and really get an opportunity to, play with the lead would be fantastic. I think the Vanderbilt cannot play catch up, and if they end up playing catch up, the defense is not able to pin their ears back, and I would love to see the defense be able to do that, get aggressive, get takeaways, as you mentioned, force the Northern Illinois quarterback into some bad decisions, anything to really get this momentum going back on the upswing on this team. And I'd love to see some varied play calls too, like you mentioned. A lot of different things. Yes, include some read option, but if they're keying onto it, which I felt like Wake Forest did, then change it up a little bit, doing maybe some quick slants or some jet sweeps. I'm obviously not a coordinator, but just things from as a fan perspective, I'd love to see. But I do think that they will be looking to implement those things. There's the coaching staff, I think, is able to make corrections like that. So we'll see. But I'm very excited for this game. I think Vanderbilt will come out with a renewed force and hopefully give a pretty good performance.
And one more thing about Vanderbilt offensive coordinator Joey Lynch. I think a lot of Vanderbilt fans were upset last year that before a certain play, it was so predictable what was going to happen. 3rd and 6, Vanderbilt's going to run it. 3rd and 6, they're going to do a slant. You really thought that. And then through the first 2 games, you saw certain things, and the Commodore fans were like, wow, I've never seen this before. This is so unpredictable. It even keeps the Commodore faithful on their feet. That's what I want to see, because once the Commodores were losing 10, 15 points, everyone knew they were going to throw the ball. And if you stay within yourselves, you can really show the world different aspects of your game and keep everyone on their feet.
Definitely. And now over to a team that has been the opposite of unpredictable and very consistent on the pitch. Vanderbilt Soccer, who has started the season with 6 wins, no losses, and 1 draw, having recorded shutouts in 6 of their 7 games. Vanderbilt has scored 15 goals in the last 4 games, most recently routing Middle Tennessee 4-0. We talked about staying consistent. They have continued to do it. Like we said last week, Darren Ambrose is an experienced coach. He knows how to make adjustments. He's similar to a Corbin type, where I don't really question him anymore, and I'm sure you don't either, Andrew. So, Andrew, what have you seen from the team? What stats or what things have stood out for you from the last 2 matches and the season so far?
Aside from the stats, I see identity. Before the season starts, everyone knew that this team would be really solid. But anytime you have a new roster, you think there'll be some growing pains, and there really haven't been. I don't think they've seen a loss yet, a tie and a win in the past 2 games. And you just see Ambrose really expecting excellence. And once you expect excellence in your student athletes, they will bring that every day, and I've been really impressed with their determination, and they're continuing to put their foot on the gas. And then against Middle Tennessee, the 4-0 win, they outshot them 15-5. I mean, it wasn't even a ball game; it was just a rout. And then scoring in the 12th, 38th, 53rd, and 83 minutes, you really see consistency. Pretty much every 15 to 20 minutes, another goal, and that's really what the Commodores. That's their game.
Definitely, yeah. And Reagan Kelly with 2 goals, and an assist, and 5 goals now, and 7 assists on the season, is not a tally to look down upon. That is a very impressive tally. So going forward, SEC play against LSU begins on the 18th. That game is at home at noon, and then they have Kentucky at home on the 22nd at 7 p.m. So everyone, I should just get out to the games, root on the squad, and watch this high-powered offense, because they are a show and they are fun to watch. So we will have all of that action covered for you on VU Sports Wired. That'll do it for this week's show. Thank you for watching, and see you next week.